Hi there, home bakers. I'm Stone from Mountaintop Kitchen, and today we're making my Not So Brooklyn Brookie Cookies, crisp, chewy chocolate chip cookies with a rich brownie tucked inside. They're easy, fun, and totally crave-inducing. So let's get started. Okay, before we get started, it might be a good idea to prepare your 8x8 tin with some parchment paper. I simply just cut a piece and slid it in here, and I have kind of fastened mine with these clips, but you don't need to do that. So we'll have that ready because we're going to make our brownie first. We need to do that before we make our cookie dough. And to start with, I should mention that all of the measurements will be right here on screen, down below in the description box if you're watching on YouTube, or the link to my Substack recipes newsletter will also be down below, so you can just go there and get all the recipes and all the information. When I bake, I do bake with metrics, so grams mostly, but in the description box and also in my Substack, I will put in the imperial measurements like cups and so forth. Okay, so we're going to start off with our brownie. We have 113 grams of butter, that's a stick of butter, and 55 grams each of chopped 70% dark chocolate, semi-sweet chocolate, and cocoa powder. So what we're going to do is you can either heat this up on a bain-marie, but make sure that the boiling water does not touch the bottom of the bowl, or you can just pop it into the microwave for 30-second intervals and keep an eye on it and stir it in between. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go pop this in the microwave, get it nice and melted, and I'll be right back. And I think we popped it in the microwave for 2 30-second intervals. That was good enough for the power of our microwave anyway. So now it's still warm, and we're going to add in 200 grams of granulated sugar, 50 grams of light brown packed sugar. I have half a teaspoon of sea salt and half a teaspoon of espresso powder. Now, if you don't like coffee or if you're worried about the taste, you can leave it out, but I assure you that adding a little bit of espresso powder, it really brings out the chocolate flavor and you won't taste any coffee. Okay, and about a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm just going to eyeball that. There we go. And we're just going to mix all of that up. I have a wooden spoon here. It's still warm, so the sugar should mix in pretty easily. You want to make sure that everything's incorporated. You'll have sort of a wet sand looking mixture once you get this all mixed in. But I can assure you these brownies are going to be scrumptious. Now, this recipe is going to be making a very thin brownie. It's not really intended to be like a brownies that you would serve at a party or a dinner or anything like that. It's for the purpose of inserting into our chocolate chip cookie dough. But you will have leftover, so you can certainly eat it as a brownie. It just won't be a very thick brownie. Okay, I think we got that pretty much mixed up. Next, we are going to beat in 2 eggs. So I have my trusty, and I really like this KitchenAid hand mixer, electric mixer. It's cordless for one thing, and I will put a link to my affiliate link down below. But I really like this because it doesn't fall over. Haven't you had those hand mixers that you set them down and they fall over, they teeter over? This won't do that because of the can shape. You can just set it right down. I love it. So we're going to add the eggs one at a time. So I'll put one in right now and go ahead and mix it on slow because we don't want things popping out. As you mix it, the color will get a little bit lighter. Not much, but just a little bit. Once you get that egg incorporated, you can go ahead and add in the second egg. And just keep on mixing until it's well incorporated into the chocolate and sugar butter mixture. Okay. You can mix a little bit. You don't have to worry about over mixing really at this point. Okay, so that's done. Now, at this point, we're going to add the flour. And you do want to be careful, usually with flour and baked goods. You don't want to overmix or you will end up with a very gluten-y cookie, brownie, whatever your cake, whatever you're baking. So we're going to put this 50 grams of all-purpose flour in, and then we're just going to gently mix it in until we see no more streaks of flour in the brownie batter. So I'm not going to be vigorous at this point. I'm doing it by hand and gently folding it in to the mixture. I still see some flour. I think I'll use my spatula to go around the edges and get some of the flour off of the bowl. Okay, and that's it. Okay, we now have all of our flour folded into the brownie mix. And that's it. All we have to do now is pop this into our 8x8 tin that we prepared earlier and bake it. So let's do that, shall we? Just pour it on in. And then we'll want to level it out a little bit once we get it into the tin. Now get all of the batter out. You don't want to leave any batter behind because this is really tasty stuff here. So let me get my trusty spatula again to get the rest of this out. Okay, almost there. Almost. I'm really a sucker for leaving batter behind, so I will go up to the last minute trying to get every bit out. And I think that's going to be good enough for now. So let's just clean off our spoons here. Get as much of it off as we can. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to take this little spatula and just try to even things out. Pushing the batter into the corners. And there's not a whole lot of batter, so it shouldn't take very long. So I'm just pushing up into the corners, leveling it out. Okay. And that's it. Okay. Now we're going to bake these for about up to 20 minutes. We don't have to worry about baking these to be very cakey because we don't want cakey brownies at this point. We're going to be inserting these inside cookie dough and cooking and baking them again. So we do want them to be a little bit on the fudgy side. So in the oven they go, and we'll be right back. This smells so good. Our brownie layer for inside of our cookie is done. It's a very thin brownie, but it smells so good. When you bake these at home, you're gonna smell how great these smell. Now, we baked these for almost 20 minutes at 305 Fahrenheit in a convection oven. This is a good point in time to say that you can get the conventional oven temperatures and times right down in the information or description box below in YouTube, or you can get it in our Substack. That link is down there too. Please think about signing up to our Substack. We come out with a new recipe every week, and this week is our not so Brooklyn Brookie cookies. Okay, we're back, and our brownies have cooled down and been chilled in the refrigerator for about an hour, so they're ready to use now. So we're just going to put these here, and we're going to start working on our cookie dough. But before we start on our cookie dough, let me remind you that all the measurements in both metrics and imperial will be in the description box below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching somewhere else, you can get those measurements in my Substack newsletter. That link is also below. Otherwise, here on screen, we'll just be showing the metrics because that's how we bake here at Mountaintop Kitchen. We use metrics. It's a good idea to get a scale, even if you live in the US, because baking with a scale is precise. And if you use cups, you might not be leveling it off the same as somebody else, or you might not be spooning or fluffing or packing your brown sugar, all those things. There's so many variables associated with baking with imperial measurements, but go ahead if that's all you can do. But I do highly recommend that you get a scale. They're really cheap. You can get them for like 10 to 25 bucks on Amazon. This one's about 23 and they're 23 bucks, and there will be a link in my Substack if you'd like to get this one. Okay, so we're going to start out with cold cubed butter, and we're using cold cubed butter because we're making a New York style cookie. It's going to be on the bigger side, so we want to have cold butter rather than the normal room temperature butter because we want to maintain the shape. So we have 2 sticks, or about 226 grams of cold cubed butter. We have 250 grams of soft brown sugar and about 150 grams of granulated sugar. We're just going to mix this for about 3 minutes. We do not want a normal, normally when you make cookies or a cake, you want a really creamy mixture with the butter and sugar. This time we want something a little more sandy and chunky because again, we're making these big cookies and we don't want them to spread a lot. Okay, let's go ahead and get this in. And it's probably a good idea to throw a tea towel over your bowl and mixer because you don't want your butter flying out. That does happen. So I'm just going to pulse it first. And then move the speed up a little bit. And we'll be back in about 3 minutes. Okay, that's been about 3 minutes. So now we're going to add our eggs one at a time. So let's get the first one in. There we go. And you want to get that fully incorporated before you add the second egg, and also scrape down your bowl in between. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll scrape down our bowl just to make sure there's nothing weird hanging around. Okay, looks pretty good. Let's add in the second egg. Let that get incorporated. And we'll add our tablespoon of vanilla extract. Let that mix a little bit. Okay, looking good. As you can see, it's not super creamy like you would normally have in a cookie recipe or a cake recipe. It is a little lumpy, and that's exactly what we want because we're using the cold butter. We have more of a wet, sandy mixture, and that's what we want. Okay, so let's put that back down, and we're going to add in our flour. We have about 420 grams of flour, and a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon and a half of fine sea salt. So again, you're going to want to use a tea towel because you don't want your flour flying out. So I'm going to put about half of it in. Now, all these ingredients have been sifted and also mixed up so that they're nice and uniform. So let's go ahead and get half of this in there. Again, doing that just because we don't want the flour kind of flying out. And then we'll scrape down the bowl and put the other half in. Again with the tea towel until it's safe. And I think it's pretty safe right now. Okay, and scrape down again because we do have quite a bit of flour lingering around here on the edges of the bowl. So we want to get all that down in. And we'll pour in our second half of flour. Okay. Again, we want to use our tea towel so the flour doesn't go flying everywhere. And you want to be careful not to overmix. So you just want to mix long enough for there not to be any streaks of flour. If you mix too long, you'll develop the gluten and you'll have a tough cookie. And we don't want that. Okay, I think that's good enough. All right, so we have pretty much our dough formed. And it's looking pretty good. I am going to scrape down because there is flour hanging around on the edges of the bowl. And we don't want that. And we're going to give it one little mix with our add-ins, which is our chocolate chips right here. Okay? And we have about 340 grams of chocolate chips. So we're going to go ahead and just plop those in and just give it one last mix until those are nicely distributed throughout the batter. And there we have our cookie dough. So we're going to take a minute to clear up the table a little bit and get ready to form our cookie balls, stuff them with our lovely brownies, and get to baking. So we'll be right back in just a minute or two. Okay, we're back. We've cleaned up our work surface a little bit. We have our cookie dough ready. We have our brownies ready. And we also have a few chopped up walnuts. We're going to top a few of these with some walnuts. A lot of people don't like nuts, so we're just going to do a few. But this is an option that you could follow. All right, so we have enough dough here to make 12 dough balls of about 120 grams each. Now I know some of you don't have a scale, so you're just going to have to divide it in half and divide until you get, 12 dough balls that are reasonably the same size. But we have a scale, so we're going to use it. So let me get 120 grams. And that's way too much. These are, New York style cookies, so they're pretty big. That's why we use cold butter. And we're also going to freeze these dough balls. I still have too much, and just a little too much. Okay, there we go. So I've got 120. I'm just going to form a ball, as you can see right here. And then I'm going to flatten it out, make sort of a nest, and take one of my brownies, stick it in there. Now you can actually kind of press these brownies if you want to in more of a ball, if you want a circle in there. It doesn't really matter. And then just make sure you close it up completely. Again, I really like the ratio of cookie to brownie because I'm more of a cookie person, to be honest. I love brownies, but sometimes they can be a little overpowering. So inside the cookie, with more cookie dough than brownie, you get some brownie, but a lot more cookie. And I like that. So I'm just going to place it on my tray. I have a parchment-lined cookie tray here. And you do want to keep these at least 3 inches apart. So we're only going to put 6 on this tray and then bake them. Okay. And let's get the next one going here. 133, close, and 130. Well, we want to get down to 120. Sorry about that. 120. Okay. So same process. Just flatten it out, form a ball, then flatten it out. Make your little nest. Grab your brownie, stick it in there, and then just close it all up. Just like that. Okay, you want to make sure it's fully closed. Form it back into a ball. This one we'll put some nuts on. How about that? So I'm going to roll it in the nuts. Just have a few on top. we'll do a few like this. A lot of people don't like nuts in their brownies or the cookies, so we're going to do it both ways. Okay, keep going. I don't really want to bore you with making 12 cookie balls right now, so I will probably end up speeding up the video so that you don't have to endure this repetitive action. Okay, there's 120. Grab our brownie. We can smush it up a little bit if we want to and close it. There we go, completely enclosed. Form a nice ball again. Place it on our cookie sheet. Okay, I'm going to speed the video up until we get 6 cookies here ready to bake. Okay, we have 6 cookies ready, and we're going to freeze these. So we're going to freeze them for a few hours, but luckily we've already made a batch of these in the freezer. So we're going to put these in the freezer, take those out, and we'll be right back to bake. Okay, so we pulled the ones that we had in the freezer out. We let them freeze overnight, but as long as you let them freeze for a few hours, you'll be okay. Now you can see that I have these spread apart about 3 inches. You do need to leave a little bit of room. They will spread some. I'm going to bake these in a convection oven at 355 degrees Fahrenheit or about 180 degrees Celsius for up to 18 minutes. But please do check our text version of the recipe if you're baking with a conventional oven. And we're going to pop these in right now and bake them, and then we're going to come back and test them out. Also, the brownies that are inside the cookies, you can cut that 8 by 8 inch square. You can cut that 8 by 8 inch square into 12 or 16 squares, however you like, depending on how much brownie you want inside your cookie. We cut ours into about 20 squares, I think. You will have some left over because we have 12 cookies, right? But that's good. You can eat those later. Let's pop these into the oven and get these baked. Okay, we're back, and these cookies are out of the oven. Now, they did rest on the cookie sheet for about 10 minutes after they came out of the oven, and that's very important to let them rest because they're going to continue to bake for about 10 minutes. The inside is still baking. After 10 minutes, you want to take them off and put them on the cooling rack like we have here. Let them cool down and then just dig in. So we're going to dig into these babies. And oh, by the way, if you haven't subscribed yet and you're watching on YouTube, how about hitting that little button right down there? We'd appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment. We like hearing from you. Also, if you do bake these cookies, please post them to Instagram or Facebook and hashtag us at Mountaintop Kitchen. We'd appreciate it, and we'd like to see what you're doing. Okay, so let's just dig in. I will take this one right here. Look at that, chocolate chips, but what's inside is what we're going to be focusing on. Now, it has a nice crispy edge, as you can see right around here, nice golden brown. You do want to bake these. We bake these for about 18 minutes, and you do want to, it depends on your oven and the settings and all that, so you do want to keep an eye on them and just make sure that they're baked until they're golden brown. In your oven, it might be 17 minutes, it might be 18 minutes, it could even be 19 minutes or so. Okay, so let's just break one of these open and see what we've got inside. I can't wait. Oh my God, look at that. The brownie inside. That looks amazing. I can't wait to dig in. They're still warm. And you can see the brownie inside here. I'm going to show this to both cameras to make sure that we get it. So, okay, I'm going to just dig right in and get into both the brownie and the cookie.
That brownie is decadent, but the cookie really offsets the sweetness of the brownie and is a really nice balance. I think I prefer this a lot better than the brookies that are like in a bar form and swirled where you have like half and half. I do like a little more cookie than brownie, and this is just perfect. And these are warm and delicious. Now, if you like cold cookies like I do myself, these will be perfect cold as well. Just take them out of the fridge, let them come to room temperature a little bit, and eat them. Also, as you can see, we only baked 6 of the 12. The other 6 we put into a freezer bag and pop those into the freezer. We're going to bake those one a day or for a future occasion. So you can freeze these, freeze the balls of dough as well. Okay, so let's see. Also, if you try this recipe and you like it, then how about checking out this recipe right here? I think you're going to like it too. I'm going to go back and continue eating my cookie, and we'll see you next time here at the Mountaintop Kitchen. Thanks for joining us today. So good. So good. Bye.